What's good, y'all? We are happy to be here. This is Elevated Vibes Radio. And before I get started on anything, I want to give love and thanks to IntellectualRadio.com for adding us, Elevated Vibes, to the family.
We're back, Rich. We're
Oh yeah, oh
back.
yeah.
Yes. All right, y'all. Y'all know the deal. It's your boy Abdul Rashid, along with the gatekeeper and the boss man Mike B. And this is Elevated Vibes Radio. Now, check this out, y'all. We got a real special guest here today. Real special. All right. I just want to say at first that I am surrounded by royalty between the brothers here and my special guest. Also, the super producer, Earl, got to give him some love. Yes, sir.
Woohoo! Thank you for having us. Thank you for having
Without a
us.
doubt, without a doubt. All right. Now, everybody, today we are talking about uplifting the Illinois school system with our special guest. The person I feel that will be on the school board for District 152 in Harvey, Illinois, the Dr. Keisha Mccaskill.
Woohoo!
Thank
Alright,
you so much
alright.
for having me. Glad to be here.
Never a problem at all. Now, I know you and I know what you do and I know what you're about and all that. But what I want you to do right now is tell everybody else about you. Tell them why you will be the best for District 152.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, gentlemen, for even having me here and taking an interest in our city, the great city of Harvey, Illinois.
Yeah.
I am running basically because I was born and raised in the city of Harvey. My roots are in Harvey. I am a product of Harvey School District 152. So I am an example of the excellence that can come. And I do say excellence because I continue to strive and continue to work to assist my community any way that I can. I'm running because the current state of our students, we as adults, we tend to point the finger at everyone else, and the teachers point the finger at the student, at the parents, and the parents point the finger at the teachers. But the reality is that there is a lack of partnership amongst everyone, but it's failing our students. We have to make sure that we understand and keep our students first. So that's one of the reasons that I'm running, to make sure that the students have the same resources and the same equity that you see in other communities, because it does exist. A lot of people look at Harvey and see a very poor community, but I'm here to tell you that we may be poor in resources, but we are very rich in people. And so that if we get our people together, we can definitely uplift the community. And I believe I'll be the best person to do that.
I feel the same. I definitely do. Now, let me ask you this. In this COVID-19 society, all right, what are some of the things that the district is doing to further the children's education, and what will you do to better that process?
Absolutely. So one of the things that the district has done is they've actually installed a remote learning situation. And I want to say first off that I am a firm believer that people do the best they can with the knowledge that they have.
Mhm.
So we don't want to say anyone's doing anything wrong. I'm just a proponent that it can be done better.
Okay.
With regard to what's currently going on with the COVID, our children are on they are on remote learning.
Mhm.
And whereas some districts never left their school districts, our children have been out of school since COVID hit back in March of last year.
Oh, wow.
For some children, this is even a more significant problem, because if you were already failing and you needed those additional resources and additional one-to-one or teacher accommodations, you're not getting that. The school did make a good effort, and I want to give them acknowledgement,
Mhm.
because they did provide those students that needed it with a hotspot to allow them to get online. But it still makes it very difficult to learn. As a hybrid instructor, I'm very aware of the challenges that come with distance learning and learning online. And it's not easy. It takes a very, very strong level of discipline to maintain an online learning situation. So when you have small children in a classroom online for hours, it becomes very inundating. Which makes it very difficult for the teachers to do their job, because they can't hold the children's attention. So one of the things that I would like to see the district to do is moving to a hybrid situation. If the school is not fully equipped to bring those children back into the classroom, bring them back in a hybrid situation so that they have part-time in school and part-time at home. It would allow them more of an opportunity to adjust to the situation.
Now,
Okay.
is that hybrid just for the grade school level, high school level? How are you picturing this hybrid model?
Now, for myself, I'm more interested in Harvey School District 152, which is elementary public school.
Okay.
However, hybrid models work across the board, even in adult learning. As a hybrid instructor, I'm in class. I'm online all week, and every other Saturday, I'm actually in a classroom. And that's for adult learners. And even they find it very difficult to maintain because there are so many different things going on in your household. So as an adult, if we find it difficult, then as a child, imagine that 3 times over.
Okay.
Okay. Let me also ask you this. Now, many times dealing with the government, especially Illinois government, they will when they say, okay, we got to cut this, we got to cut that, and so forth. All right. So something usually is cutting, and most of the times they start cutting at the school system, education, and so forth. Um, what will you do to make sure that funds come in when they start cutting some of these funds that usually the government does do almost every election cycle? And I'm
Well,
talking about statewide, so I do
yeah.
apologize.
Oh no, you're fine. It's an excellent question. With the installation of Joe Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, his wife, is a proponent of education, and she's pushing for several different education models that are going to bring more money to the state and the local school districts. Now that it comes down to the state level, we have our Senator Napoleon Harris, who has just announced that they're going to be bringing $250 million to local school districts. As an advocate as a board member, I will be an advocate to make sure that our school district actually receives a significant amount of that money
Okay.
because one, we're serving underserved children. We're in an underserved community that does not have the resources. We cannot rely on our property taxes, nor can we rely on our industry to support our school system. So we should be, as board members, requesting that the state and advocating at the state and federal level that we receive even more dollars because we need more instruction. Coming back off of a COVID situation, it would just be in our best interest to have more dollars to put one-to-one teachers, more one-to-one teachers. We need better special education programs. We need more support staff in the classrooms that can assist the teachers with reacclimating the children when they come back.
Well, let me ask you this. You talk about the resources and things like that. How do you explain to someone who is, say, from, let's say, Evanston or Winnetka or things like that, because we do know that property taxes pay for education? What is the argument to me as a parent in Winnetka? I go to work every day. You know, I work hard just like everybody else does. Why should my tax dollars that, and the property taxes I'm paying for, I have a very nice home or things like that where I'm living. Why should my tax dollars be allocated to Harvey, for kids that I may not even have any connection to, and it's taking money out of my school district? What is your argument for that? Because as a parent, yes, I believe in equality, but I'm also, want to zealously advocate for my children.
Absolutely.
And so why should my hard-earned dollars and my property taxes go to support Harvey, which we know has a history of, political cronyism, has not been, I guess the word is financially well run, has not done anything to govern its tax base or grow its tax base. So explain to me as a Winnetka parent or Evanston parent or Naperville parent why my dollars should go to help support Harvey.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question because that's one of the misconceptions. So the tax dollars from Winnetka will stay in Winnetka. The monies that I'm speaking of are new funding that the government is going to put out and pass down to communities. And the reason it should be looked at with regard to how the children are being serviced is because there is a huge disproportion. It's a disparity between Winnetka and a Harvey. So whereas the Winnetka tax base or household income may be at a minimum of $75,000 or higher, in Harvey, it's $30,000 or lower. So there's that huge equity gap in just the economic development is the curve that they're going to need to use if they really want to strengthen the school base across the state. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is that when you look at places like Winnetka, and this is where my argument comes in also, when you're looking at curriculum, there should not be any disparity or inequality between the curriculums that are being used, regardless of what your tax base is. And what we're finding is that the curriculums that are used in Winnetka, whereas a child in Winnetka is learning algebra in kindergarten and first grade, they're learning the basics and the transitions of numbers. We're not getting that education in algebra until second or third grade. So we're already 2 years behind where Winnetka is. So those are the type of disparities that are putting us in a situation where we need those additional resources. The other thing is, you want to keep in mind that Harvey is hit hard with transitional residents. So when they continue to get rid of gentrification, I don't want to keep using the word, but gentrification is what's happening in Chicago. And when they continue to demolish these buildings where you already have people in poverty with education barriers or with lack of resources, they're not pushing them to Winnetka. They're pushing them to Harvey. They're pushing them to Robbins. They're pushing them to other cities where we don't have caps on our Section 8 or other things. So there are some other variables that are basically impacting us. But again, tax dollars from other communities, your tax dollars are your tax dollars. So we just don't have the tax dollars to really support what I would like to see done.
Let me ask you this with curriculum. And boss man, you can help me with this a little bit. There was a thing that our former president tried to push out there, the 1619 project.
No, he was against the 1619 project.
Okay.
I think it was the American Freedom, something,
some patriot,
American Patriot that they were trying to push.
How can you make sure that some of the truth of history and so forth stays in the school so that the children, so forth, learn this and understand it, and are not naive to it as when they become adults?
As it relates to history, especially Black history, Black and brown history, let me be very clear. I am unapologetically Black. So if I say anything, it's out of the kindness of my heart, not to offend anyone. However, the reality is, I think that the past 2 years, with the various movements that have gone on, with the trial that we're currently watching now with George Floyd, with many of the issues that have happened in the Black community, with the Black on Black crime, I think right now people are really starting to wake up. The reality is setting in that if we don't step in now, that we will not have a chance later. We have to really be more advocate focused for our own children. We have to go back to being parent-led households, where the parent is telling the child what to do and not vice versa. We need to have more of a discipline and more of a resource base in our communities. When we were younger, everybody was involved in your process. If somebody saw you acting up on the street, they told your parents took care of it, and you knew
the community
knew what was going on.
Grow up.
So you want to make sure, exactly, the community was a big part of who you were. And so we have to get back to that. We have to make it, we as parents, it's imperative that we become partners with our teachers. When a teacher says something in the school district or in the home or send something home, it's imperative that the parent take the initiative to actually say, let me get involved, let me understand. When standardized test scores come out, the teacher can tell you what the scores are, they can show you what the scores are, but it's up to you as a parent to say, okay, let me find out what else I can do, what other resources are available to me. So those type of things. As it relates to history, again, I want to see more of a parent-led process, because there's no guarantee. We have so much effort right now to cancel culture. And unfortunately, as we cancel culture, what I'm seeing is most of it is canceling people's recognition of what was done to the Black community. So I am a proponent of not canceling culture, but making people accept and acknowledge it, and then let's teach it and move forward from there.
Well, you speak a lot about the parent involvement, but isn't that part of the issue, is the lack of parent involvement? Like, you can have as many open houses as you want. You can try to start as late as you want. All of us here are products of the public school system. Later in my career, I've worked in the public schools, and you offer free pizza, you offer incentives for the people to come out. Isn't part of the issue. And if we're going to lay blame, we're good at laying blame with the teachers. We're good at laying blame with education. Isn't it time we start looking at the parents as well and start asking some hard questions of the parents and getting them involved? I mean, I love the fact that you're running. We were all talking earlier, and all politics are local. Like, it's important to know what's going on with the federal government, but they affect you every, month. Local politics affects you every day. Every day. So how do you talk to the people that you want to vote for you and say that you too have a part to play in this? Like, you just can't vote and throw your hands up and wish that manna fall from the sky and that the system is going to fix itself.
Absolutely.
The things that separate Winnetka and Harvey is parental involvement. When there's an issue in Winnetka, every time we see it, those stadiums are crowded. I assume, I may be incorrect, that when issues are facing Harvey, that the stadiums or wherever you're holding it may not be as crowded.
Accurate. And I would like to see crowded stadiums because we have some good sports teams, and the stadiums are packed. Our basketball team is nationally known.
Right.
But with regard to parent accountability, that's
one
word. Thing that I've been pushing in my campaign, that I want to be in partnership and accountable with you. So the things that I'm telling you that I'm going to do, you hold me accountable for them, because I'm going to need you to push the agenda. So if you're asking me and you're saying, Dr. Mccaskill, my child is in special education and they need more special ed programs, and I'm advocating for that, I need you at that board meeting saying, yes, we're here to support Dr. Mccaskill. This is what she's trying to do for my child. I want the parents, we're having an issue right now with our school not going on field trips. How do you expect a child to become a global master if they've not seen anything outside of Harvey? So those type of things. But it takes the parents to say, I am invested in my children. I can be as invested as I want to be.
Correct.
If I don't have the support of the parents to help push your child along, it doesn't help you. Just like with the teachers. I can give them all of the support in the world, but if they're scared to speak up on their own, it doesn't really help me. So I don't want to give a pie in the sky type of false reality, because it's not going to be easy. I mean, this has been going on for years, so it's not going to be easy. But I do believe that the residents of Harvey are ready for a change. I think that the parents are ready to see something happen differently with their children, and it's going to be their responsibility to be actively involved with their child.
Okay. Well, but I guess that's my question. Like, you get elected, you're advocating for all of these changes, but you don't get the support. And I guess I'm using this as a platform to say, again, all politics are local. In presidential elections, African Americans tend to turn out in droves. We turn out for the person at the top of the ticket. And what I'm saying is to our listeners now is that if you want to get into the minutia of politics and be able to control your life on a day-to-day basis, this is the opportunity. You run for the local school councils.
Absolutely.
You run for a water district. If you think your water bill is too high and that's not going where it's supposed to go, that's when you run for a water commissioner. It all starts local. We all think about the president, our senators, our representatives. I was really impressed. You knew you're a state representative. If you held a gun to my head right now and said, I'm going to pull the trigger, I'd be sitting up here saying Annie Oakley. I don't know who my state rep is, but these are the people who impact us the most, more so than what's happening in Congress or not happening in Congress, what Biden is trying to do. So I guess my question is to you is, what programs or incentives or what kind of things do you think needs to be done to make sure that this parental involvement happens? Because it does no good for us to put you on the radio, you win. I'm not even sure who your competition is. and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Will do.
And you can let us know, it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the parents, and this is why we want you to come out. It doesn't involve getting the press coverage. We know Harvey only seems to make the press when tragedy happens.
Absolutely. Agreed.
But before you get into that, let me add on to it. Could you let us know what the mayor's office, since we were talking about local involvement. Excuse me. The mayor's office. What is he doing to help District 152 and every other district in Harvey, 147 and so forth?
Well, you know what? With regard to the city of Harvey, we're 4 separate governments.
Right.
So the mayor's office doesn't have a direct responsibility as it relates to the school district itself. The school is its own governing body. Both school districts. We actually have 2 local public school districts.
Right.
Okay.
And so he doesn't have a direct. What I will say is that most recently what I saw was there was a partnership with the school district to get students involved in a contest for creating the new Harvey City sticker. So he did that.
Okay.
But as far as direct involvement with the school, you really don't see much of that.
Okay.
More of your direct involvement with the school is between like the school and the park district, where there's more of a continuity of care, or the schools and the library.
Okay. And let me also ask you to tell everybody about people who are on your team, because I know with school board you have a slate of different people, as well as Bossman talked about your opponents. But I like to, and people like to know the people that are on your team. Like I said, I know them, but a lot of other folks don't. So
okay, so I'll take 2 questions. So the first one,
yeah, go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
First question was with regard to getting the parents actively involved. Again, hard sell. But what I'm going to be trying to do is getting parents, get them to come out to the parent-teacher conferences. I'm not a fan of the incentive programs because I want people to take a personal interest in their own child. I can't guarantee that they're going to come out. All I can do is make sure the opportunities are there. One of the things that I've heard a lot on the campaign trail is that we're not getting information. I don't know if when the information is coming out. I'll be making sure that I do make sure the communication is there. I know that my team will be making sure that whether it's Facebook Live, whether it's sending out literature, we're not really sure everything that needs to be done, because it seems like most of it has been done. It's just a personal investment that parents are going to have to take.
Well, can we go back to the old school days, when they used to pin the note on your jacket and send you home, because sometimes, I just, with this new information technology, like I can't even check my kids' homework half the time because they on Chromebooks, and you just asking them, hey, did you do your homework? And they saying, yeah. And you have no idea, literally I'm taking my kid's word. Like, it used to be a time, I don't know if you remember when, you had to, make the little boxes on the paper, and, the teachers will always assign the odd numbers because the even number answers were in the back. And so, you go and do your homework and your parents will check it, and you have to, take it to school the next day. Or, when we were in kindergarten or first grade, they put the little pins on your jacket.
That's that accountability.
That's that accountability. You better
bring that letter back to school.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if there's a place between technology where we may have made things too efficient. Like there's too much efficiency built into the system and not enough accountability. So, as this means like, if the kid doesn't bring the note back, that someone, I don't think we have resource officers anymore, or do they?
In some instances.
Okay.
In some instances. But what you're saying is accurate. Because of technology, I think it took a lot of the accountability out. So something to me that would be efficient is putting an app. Most of your parents, they may not go directly to their email, but they get that text page because that phone is always in their hand.
Yeah.
So we have to create a district-wide app where they're getting alerts. Your child is on the watch list, or your child just spelled Spanish, or whatever it may be. So they're getting an immediate acknowledgement of what's going on. So if we're going to enhance the technology, let's enhance it in a way that actually meets their needs.
Okay.
And makes it very quick and efficient, for lack of better words, because not all parents are looking on the Chromebooks. And again, not all parents are technology efficient. But we know that they can go on Google and we know that they can go on Facebook and they know how to use apps. So if we put them in a position to be successful,
Okay.
my goal is to put people in a position where they can't say they didn't know.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
And then with regard to my team,
Mhm.
we have a pretty extensive team. So for Harvey School District 152, there is myself, Dr. Keisha Mccaskill. There's also Keith Price. Keith Price is a former alderman in the city of Harvey, alderman of 12 years, born and raised in the city of Harvey. He's a product of Harvey School District 152 and Thornton Township High School, which is our local high school.
Okay.
There's Miss Chappelle Hooks. She is actually a parent in the district. She's also from Harvey, attended Harvey School District 152 and 205. And then our other teammate is Felicia Johnson. Again, Harvey School District 152, graduated from Thornton Township High School. So that's the one thing that we all have in common. The other thing that we have in common is that we actually live in the city of Harvey. And we are people that left the city, to go to college or live other places, but we came back because we all four really believe that we are the team that can get the city back. We do believe that we can bring the school district back to some level of competitiveness. Right now, our children are not in a position to even compete at certain academic levels. Now, if you're talking about band, we have a nationally renowned, acknowledged band. I mean, our band director is, I will put him up against anyone.
Okay.
When it comes to our community liaison, excellent young lady. She actually comes up to Winnetka and Naperville to see what you guys are doing and trying to bring new ideas back to the city of Harvey, bring back ideas to our school district. So we feel like we are the team that is going to not only help the children academically, but advocate for a more holistic approach to how children's needs are being met. The mistake that we no longer have the luxury, shall I say, in the city of Harvey to allow our students to just say, my homework is done. We need our parents to be actively involved. We need to go back to a village mentality. When I was younger, our businesses played a very big role. And now we have very limited businesses in the city of Harvey, but that doesn't mean they don't need to be involved in the process. Some other things that need to be done with regard to parent connection. And this is where our team comes in also. A great number of the parents and grandparents that you're beginning to see in Harvey are 60 and under.
Mm.
So we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our colleagues, our peers, for lack of better words, our former classmates, because that's who's in the city now. That's what the transition looks like. People that are moving in from other areas, Chicago or other areas, they are 60 and under. But so we need to make sure that we're not antiquated in how we're doing our academics, but actually pushing forward with some type of technology and some type of efficiency that helps them feel like they're included in the process.
With that being said, I was wondering, how can we start to implement, let's just say, different types of education, such as like trade schooling and things that will give a skill to the kids so they will be better prepared after school when we get to the real life. How can we implement that back into the school districts, as it seems it's been taken away a little bit?
Absolutely. I'm sure that if Keith Price is watching, he is probably falling out of his seat because he is an advocate of the vocational process, even starting at the 8th grade level. One thing that he has been discussing and we've discussed as a team is there is a school building. We have 2 school buildings that are empty in the district, and turning those into trade school or workshop locations where the parents and the kids can come and get trade school learning, whether it be learning how to become a barber, a beautician, a mechanic, or whatever other vocational interest that they show. Definitely.
Yeah, and I was wondering also, it seems like we've taken some things out of the school district, like how to spend our money, how to do our taxes, how to start a business. I just think that it would be beneficial if we can actually give our kids something to look forward to. As you said, we can only if you've only been in a box, you can't see so far out of it. So I think it's important for us to give us those resources back to the kids and to the community. And then eventually we'll see a change also with the parents when they realize that they do have a voice. And when they want to implement something, there is somebody there to actually make that change. And I think that will help some of the outturns that we have, because up until recently, a lot of people feel like they don't have a voice. And I think nowadays, with things that are happening, people are realizing they do have a voice, and also people like yourself and others are stepping up to let those people know that they're not alone also.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Financial literacy in our community has to take place. I mean, it has to be mandatory, and it needs to start in the elementary school. I know years ago there was a program in the school where the local banks would come to the school and teach students how to do their bank accounts. There were also programs where they taught you how to earn money in the school, and then at the end of the week you could buy like certain things, like maybe it's candy or a little toy or whatever, but it was teaching them how to manage their money and how to earn money. And I think we need to go back to those. Unfortunately, our children right now, they are incentivized by money, you know. So if we have to do public books or whatever we want to call it, and give them fake money just so they can learn how to, manage the money, go back to buying things and being responsible for how they utilize their dollars. And those are some of the things we need to do. With regard to our parents, absolutely. The financial literacy piece, we definitely need it. For those, I'm not going to say everyone doesn't have it, but for those that do have it, there's always room for improvement. And then for those that don't have it, there's room to learn. So we just need to bring the resources and make them available.
All right, we're going to go to a quick musical break, but let me let y'all know y'all can give us a call and you can talk to the doctor. The number here is 708-223-8953. Once again, that's 708-223-8953. You are listening to Elevated Vibes on IntellectualRadio.com. All right, we're back. This is Elevated Vibes Radio on IntellectualRadio.com. We are talking with the doctor, Keisha Mccaskill, running for a school board position in District 152 in Harvey, Illinois. Now, let me remind you guys, you can give us a call, 708-223-8953, or you can hit us up on YouTube Live or Facebook Live, all right, at Intellectual Radio on YouTube, and Elevated Vibes Radio on Facebook. All right, now, excuse me. Gatekeeper, you had a question that you was just giving Dr. McCaskill. Can you go ahead with that? So,
Well, I just had a question about nowadays we have so many of our young adolescents who are actually geniuses.
Mhm.
You know, they it may not be in a specific direction as has been told to us in the past years, but they're doing genius things. They're coming up with inventions. They can think fast. They can even when it comes down to sports, they can do certain things with their body. And I was just wondering, how can we change the notation or the information of what is genius to give our kids more hope, more outlook on life, and not be pushed in a box as if just because I'm not exceeding in one thing, that doesn't mean that I don't have potential. How can we change that narrative for for the parents and mostly for the kids to understand who they can and are, who they can be and who they are?
Absolutely. Again, that goes back to what I was stating earlier with regard to holistic teaching, because not all children are not going to learn at the same level because they are each individual. So it's imperative, like our teachers. One, you want teachers that are visually excited about what they're doing. If your teacher comes to school and they're kind of mundane and they really don't want to be there, children pick up on that. But if you come to school and you're excited about being there and you're excited about the curriculum, their children are more likely to buy into that. The other thing is that what you're seeing in 2021, the exposure of Black children that are being identified as geniuses, this has always been going on. So they should not be the exception to the rule. They are the rule. So until we instill that into the children, they're not going to know that. Again, during the break, we were talking about different types of education. When you talk about left-brain thinkers, as a people, we build, we touch, we are very, very visual in our thinking. So our critical thinking goes beyond what we read. It goes into what we actually feel. Some people can feel textures and make differences. You have children that are as young as 8 years old writing books. When you begin to look at these children that are starting their own cookbooks, or they have their own stores, their own online stores, things like that. But the parents have to identify that my child has this talent and not be afraid to challenge, ask for more challenging work. If your child can exceed the grade level that they're in, talk to the teachers, ask for more challenging work, do your own research, go on a Google or go to a teacher store or go online and find different resources. Resources are out there. It's just a matter of how we go about getting them.
Let me ask you this, and it may be a little controversial. I don't know. We'll see what your answer is. Where are you at on the standardized testing? We've talked. You've mentioned it several times. We know that we should know that standardized testing has a racial component to it. The tests are historically designed by people who do not look or resemble those of us who are here in the studio right now. We know for a fact that the SAT was designed to keep people of color out of higher academic institutions. So given the historical context of these standardized testing and the fact that you are running for a local school district that I'm assuming is 98 to 99% African American, or 97%, maybe with some Latinx
Latinx.
Influence or people in it. Given this context, where are you at on standardized testing?
You put me in the mercy seat.
Uh-oh.
I am a proponent of doing away with standardized testing, to be perfectly honest.
What? Wait,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
How are you supposed to measure success then? How do the teacher knew they doing their job? I mean, how am I supposed to determine Ed's salary if he ain't giving a standardized test and his kids ain't passing? I mean, that's.
But if you're testing them based on what Ed does, you're not testing them appropriately anyway.
Right.
So if I'm testing them against the status quo, they'll never succeed. If you really want a balanced testing program, we should have the intelligence enough within our school districts to identify the best ways to test our children. Some children test very high in reading and very low in math. Maybe the variable. Okay. So maybe the continuity or the connection should be giving them math that's set up in word problems. because maybe that's how they'll get a better understanding. We have to be more creative in the ways that we teach our children. Even when you're talking about STEM, everyone's running around science, technology, engineering, and math. It sounds good on paper and it sounded good when I said it. But the reality is, what does it actually mean? When you're talking about a third grader, and I don't want to keep going back to Winnetka, but we'll just use that. So a third grader in Winnetka learning how to make a volcano in a jar versus a third grader in Harvey learning how to make a pulley with a ruler and a string.
Right.
The level of thinking, my thing is, don't teach my kids at the level that you think they can learn. Teach them at the level that they should be learning and allow them to exceed that. If you teach them low, they're going to learn low. And when you teach them low, you're creating a gateway for them. And the gateway is either going to be street or prison. So if you teach them not to succeed, they won't succeed. But if you teach them to succeed at a higher level, that's what they're going to begin to, that they can feel good about that. And that's what they'll go for.
Okay, then we also speak on the thing of teaching. How can we bring, or how can you bring more teachers to the Harvey school system? Because, like he spoke about Winnetka, Naperville, Schaumburg, we go down the line. They're going to pay them a big salary. That's why they run in there, So how can you bring some of these teachers that can do the job, that can connect with the children? How can you bring them into Harvey District 152?
It's kind of a double-edged sword. And I will say this. The Harvey School District has a history of bringing in very good teachers. A lot of the teacher comes through, they come in because of loan forgiveness programs. So if you're a teacher and you go into an underserved community, it helps to pay your student loans back. So I get the need to come into our community.
Right. Now, is there a municipality requirement for Harvey teachers? Like, must they reside in the city of Harvey?
No, like the city of Chicago, you must reside in the city of Chicago. No, we don't have that. They can come from anywhere. And I do believe that that's part of the investment in the children. But what I will say is that we have very good teachers. We don't need to change the incentive for them to come to Harvey, because there's a shortage of teachers nationwide. In Illinois, this shortage is very, very high. We need to incentivize them to stay. So once the student loans, let's not go look for another area. What else can we do as a district? And I won't know until I'm actually sitting on the board and get an opportunity to dig deep into what the financial resources are, and then to look at the collective bargaining agreement to see what the teachers already have in place. But we need to look at, what do we do to help them stay? Because we're bringing in great teachers. It's just a matter of, once their time is up, they leave, or different things are going on within the district that make them feel uncomfortable, so they leave. What do we need to do differently to create an environment where the teachers want to stay and they're actually vested in being there long term?
Okay, all right. So here's another question for you.
Please.
5-6 years from now, where do you see the Harvey school system?
In 5 or 6 years, right now, if you look at,
I'll even stretch it. Let's say a decade.
let's say, okay,
Yeah.
in 10 years,
Right.
I would like to see Harvey School District children at their academic level.
Okay.
Right now, if you were to go on the Illinois State Board of Education website and look at the Harvey School District's report card, you would see that the majority of our children, that 35% of our children are testing below average. That's across the board. And when it comes to our special education, the number is even higher. So I would like to see them testing at average. When they're leaving out of 8th grade, right now we're at a 3.8 reading level. That's 3rd grade. It's imperative that they at least get to the level they're supposed to be at so they can be successful in high school. Because if you don't, the remediation just continues to repeat itself. You get remedial classes in high school. Then if you try to go to vocation or go to college or anything else, then you're in remedial before you can get to where you really need to be. So it just makes your challenges a little bit harder. So that's one thing I would like to see in 10 years. The other thing I would like to see is, as the enrollment goes down, right now we're about 1,911 students. We have 6 school buildings. We don't need that many schools. So at some point, I would like to see an institution built that probably takes on the face of a high school size school, and having different wings where we have a science wing, a math wing, so that these children are getting everything they need from kindergarten, and you see a continuation all the way up to 8th grade. One of the reasons why that's important is because you will make sure that there's not a disconnect. We have 6 schools. You don't want third graders in every school learning something different. We want a clean curriculum across the board. So that means everyone in third grade, that's how you test them. If everyone's learning the same curriculum and doing the same thing, then you'll know what works and what doesn't work. You'll be able to identify your children that are far advanced and those that are below.
Well, let me ask you this then. We know that teaching is more art than science, and words, you engage with different students in different ways. So how does that happen if a teacher, and part of the controversies that teachers are having is that some of the creativity that's required has been taken out of their hands because of these curriculums that they have to teach. This national education with the new math that none of us ever learned, and all of that stuff. If you're taking the creative process out of teaching, um, how does that happen? I mean, I know at my school, there were books that other third graders read that I didn't read,
Mhm.
or even in high school, there are books that I read that others didn't read. I remember reading Fahrenheit 451. I didn't read Where the Red Fern Grows, or things like, or The Big Red Letter. I can't even remember that book, but but part of it is, you have to, as a teacher, have some creative influence into the teaching. And it sounds like to me like you're saying one thing, but then you're saying this over here. So where is that middle ground where teachers have some creative influence, but yet we're all making sure that our third graders are moving in the same direction? I believe you agree that that the window for education is that first through fifth grade. We know
Oh,
we gotta
absolutely.
hook the kids in first through fifth grade, and we know that if a kid is not reading that fifth grade level at the fifth grade level when he's in fifth grade, his chances of dropping out, you know, grow proportionately every year for every year that he
Mhm.
or she is in education. So if you can address those factors for me, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So, with regard to curriculum should be continuity. So, whatever you're learning in kindergarten should prepare you for first prepares you for second, and so on and so forth. The autonomy of how a teacher delivers the information is where the creativity comes in. So, if the 4 of us have the same curriculum, you may say, okay, well, I'm going to take my children through a Montessori type of program. So, I'm going to teach them math and science by teaching them horticulture and agriculture, whereas my students are able to learn through reading and on hands-on. Richard may decide he has to do his through more of a technology base. Well, we're going to get in here with this computer in this lab. The gatekeeper may decide, you know what, we're going to go visit a couple art museums, and we're going to take the measurements of the paintings, and that's how we're going to decipher. So the autonomy of the teachers is how you get the creativity. But what you're teaching shouldn't change. That's the only way you can measure them. And then once you see how each person's engagement helped, you may find that one, you need to transition some kids, because maybe in my classroom they learn better from technology versus in his classroom they learn better from horticulture and agriculture, so we send them over to you. So those are the types of things that we got to begin to look at. The other thing that we need to look at it with regard to autonomy is what resources are we allowing the parents to send home? One of the complaints that I've heard while on the campaign trail is that the children don't have books. How can you have autonomy as a teacher if you're not allowed to send the books home with the children? So how can I hold a teacher accountable for what the child isn't learning when there's no continuity? You have to be able to, that's even as an adult. We do things repetitively as adults so that we can make sure that we retain the information. So those are the type of things. But the curriculum, I stand on that. It has to be across the board. It has to be um, a gradual effective learning where they're going from one grade to the other. But the autonomy, absolutely. The teachers must have autonomy in their classroom.
Okay, I'd like to touch on one more thing is with special education. All right. A lot of times, number one, a lot of times we can look at special education as the child learns a little different than the standard way. Okay. Now, saying that, sometimes you have a teacher that needs a couple of assistants in there. All right. Is there enough funds for the assistants? And what also could 152 do and Illinois school system as a whole do better to help the special education program that you could
Yeah.
think of?
Now, what I will say, and again, I've learned a lot just on this campaign trail. Let me say this. Let me go back just a little bit. I actually sat on the school board from 2013 to 2017. I didn't win my reelection in 2017, and then in the following election, I didn't run. Um, One thing that I see different from now and when I was actually sitting on the board, test scores were low, but we were beginning to move in the direction, and that's verified and documented by the state. So during the time that I was on the board, you did begin to see growth, but that's because we did inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was included in the process. We didn't have the separation in programming. One of the things that you hear about now, especially from your special education parents or parents with special education or children with special needs, is that their children are not always included in the extracurricular activities. The children didn't get the same resources in remote learning as they did when they were actually in school. So there are a lot of violations that occurred. Now, what I have to take a step back and say is that I won't know until I actually get on the board exactly what was the rationale behind removing the TAs out of the classrooms. What happened that the special education students are not getting the same level of care that they were getting during the school district. And I would have that question because the federal government gave out COVID money. They gave out COVID funds to ensure that districts were able to continue to work at a higher level, even though the children may be in a different learning environment. So I would need to know exactly what happened that there's a gap in service and resources, especially for the special education students.
Exactly, because if you look at it, they can do just as well as I guess you would say standard education
Absolutely.
students can do. So just to get that in there will be a blessed thing instead of having a special education child, you know, probably go through high school and so forth. And then if they don't go to a trade school, they're out here frustrated because they see everybody else doing whatever and they feel that they can't do it. They lost that confidence and so forth, you know. So
Absolutely.
definitely. Any questions, gatekeeper? You've been kind of
One of the things that I was just gonna say was actually about the special needs, because special needs is categorized kind of broad.
right,
It could be a gentleman or a young lady that's having some anger issues,
right.
or some disability, some problems in class, just paying attention.
Mhm.
So I noticed sometimes in those situations, the child kind of gets overlooked,
Mm-hmm.
and once they're placed in that category,
Mhm.
it's like then they don't want them to come back into the regular school system. So I was just wondering, how can we better diagnose the kids' problem through psychologists and things like that, and to get them back into the regular curricular activity as the others are, because like you said earlier, maybe they just learned a little different or were having some problems, but once they get pushed into that box, it's hard to get out. And in some programs, they have situations where the kid can go back to school, but the school won't allow them to come back into the regular curricular activity because they were already pushed out. So I'm just wondering, how can we one, try to make sure we get the right diagnosis, and then also once the children have showed that they can come back into a regular school setting, how do we implement that and get them ready to go back into the future?
It is it's going to be challenging. Your schools, you have social workers in the schools. You don't have the number of social workers necessary to meet the needs of all of the children that are in the school. So that's where you kind of get into the obstacle of trying to decide which child comes first.
Gotcha.
Let me say that. So with regard, and again, it goes back to resources. What I'm hoping is that the district has not spent all of the COVID money so that when they begin to bring the children back into the school, they can get those additional resources. Like right now is the perfect time for them to be looking for hiring, even on a part-time basis, and working with DHS on a part-time basis to utilize the medical card system to help supplement whatever the school can't pay for, but bringing in more social workers to not only support the students, but support the children, because COVID hit everybody. And then with regard to the special education children, they need the one-to-ones. They need to, whether it be behavioral, whether it be just a physical disability or a learning disability, there must be additional resources in the classroom. Unless you're going to make a remarkable and significant distinction with regard to decreasing the number of children in the class so that it's more manageable, you need a second person in the class to assist.
Definitely
So more
understand.
resources, definitely.
Yes, yes.
Well, it's coming to the end of the show for today, but I would love to first say thank you,
Thank you.
thank
Oh,
you
thank you for
for
having
you.
me. I
coming
appreciate
to
the
our first
conversation.
show
A great
in the
vision.
family here with Intellectual Radio. We are so thankful for that.
Thank you.
And to let everybody out here know, to remind y'all, local elections, vote, go and vote. They are important.
Rich,
So-
let her give her webpage one more time.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh,
Go ahead.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. And again, my name is Dr. Keisha Mccaskill. I'm running for Harvey School District 152. I am here to advocate for you and your children. So vote for me April 6th, and you can meet me at www.votemccaskill.com.
That's
All
what
right.
it is. That's what it is.
All right.
Much love.
Thank you.
Much love. Elevated Vibes will be back next week.
Excellent. Thank you also.